Shalom, all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone, and salutations to all you sincere Akim. This is your brother Abawan continuing on with the video. So lucky about that, I was interrupted and I didn't have a chance to get back to the video, but let me just go on from where I stopped. Deuteronomy 28, verse 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above the very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. And this is the reason why you have Jake living in all these parts of the world, the fatness of the earth, so to speak. And yet, Jake is still in poverty. Our people are still in poverty and in captivity because we are under the curses and our enemies are ruling over us, which is, of course, Esau, Edom, which carries me to my next precept, and it reads, feed the flock of the slaughter. Because what you'll find out is that the scriptures completely explains every situation that our people are in in detail even. So you ask yourself, Africa has all this wealth, has all these mineral resources. So how is it that Africa is the poorest continent, right? Because Africa is predominantly occupied by Israelites. The same thing with South America, right? It's rich in resources. It has all these resources. So why is it one of the poorest parts of the world? Because South America is predominantly Jake Israelites dwelling in them. And the reason why all these lands that our people are in are so poor, we even though it is so rich in resources, because we are under the curses, and under these curses our people are meant to be the bottom, a byword and a proverb. And that's exactly what is happening with Africans, right? With South Americans, with African Americans, so-called Africans, so-called South Americans, so-called African Americans, but these are all Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. The scattered Israelites that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. That is our true nationality, right? And this isn't a video, talking about why Africa, quote unquote, is poor, because the focus, right, isn't on Africa, because whenever you hear Africa being mentioned, especially historically and in terms of the world global stage, really what they are talking about are the jigs that are in Africa, right? Because whenever you ask somebody about, if they are African, the major countries you usually hear are countries that are predominantly jigs. So Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia. These are countries that have, of course, they have their Hamites, but the vast majority of the people, the citizens of this country, or in some cases, the vast majority of them are Jakes, man. Or in some cases, itself, it's completely filled with Jakes. Like, for example, West Africa, South Africa is a little bit more mixed. You have your Hamites, you have your Jake, and you also have Edomites out there as well. So when they are talking about Africa, and you notice that the person that was speaking was either a prime minister or a politician in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone is a country, is they are the people of Sierra Leone are Israelites, and she was bemoaning the situation that our people are in. So let me go to this precept. Like I was saying, she was bemoaning the situation that our people were in. Hold on, this isn't. Hold on, Slakia. This is the preset I was looking for. But like I was saying, yeah, she was bemoaning the situation that our people are in, and she was giving you the reasons why you are in that situation, but this is the complete understanding of that, okay? Because now you get why Esau Edom is able to just run roughshod on Jake, run roughshod on these different parts of the world without any retaliation. Why is it that all these other nations can come into Africa, take out of the resources and enrich themselves of it? Why is it that all these other nations can go to South America as well, take all the resources and enrich themselves? Why is it that in North America, in Babylon the Great, you have Jake being the backbone of that kingdom, and all these other nations come into that kingdom and enrich themselves of the labor of Jake, whether it's Northern Kingdom or Southern Kingdom, it's still the same thing, Back during the transatlantic slave trade, was it not Judah and Israel that were oppressed together? It was both of our people, both Northern and Southern Kingdom, in the transatlantic slave trade that was working in the plantation, because you have to remember a lot of the Northern Kingdom, right? Native American Indians were reclassified as Negroes and also put into slavery as well. So you had both nations, and also not forget the triangular slave trade where you had guards and the Northern Kingdom being taken out of the land of the Americas and shipped over to Europe to work as slaves as well. So these are just some examples of how our people, Esau Edom is constantly exploiting our people, exploiting the land, exploiting the people in order to enrich himself and the nations doing so as well. That's why you always hear about these immigrants, your mother minority, like the Asians, right? The Indians, the Hamite Africans, the Arabs coming to Babylon the Great and being able to enrich themselves because they usually operate their stores, their businesses in Jake neighborhoods. And there, once again, they enrich themselves from off and they enrich themselves off you, okay? Because this isn't something that is just limited to Africa. This is a global phenomena. Wherever Jake is in, the same situations and the same thing is happening to them. The strangers, the heathen are coming into your neighborhoods, coming into your communities and enriching themselves off you. Zechariah 11, verse 4. Thus saith Yahweh my power, feed the flock of the slaughter, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, Blessed be Yahweh, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. Right. And like I said, they enrich themselves off you, okay? And this is another important part I wanted to go into, because you always hear people talk about this, that if why are the African leaders just sitting by and doing nothing and allowing their nations to stay poor, right? And this is the reason right here. As it says, their own shepherds pity them not, and those shepherds are, of course, the leaders you have among you. And we already know about the sellouts. We already know that most of these leaders are sellouts. They are agents working for Esau Edom, because you have so many different and even Esau Edom has admitted this, that they always put in agents and put agent provocateurs, or set up puppet leaders, or assassinate potential problematic leaders in order to better control it and destabilize a nation. COINTELPRO in the in the so-called black community during the civil rights era with the FBI, right? How many Haitian leaders have been assassinated by Esau Edom at this point, right? Gaddafi of Libya, back in, that was like during Obama's regime, 2000, and I forget the exact date, but he was also assassinated, and the files were ultimately released about how they did it. I believe it was in the Pandora Papers, right? And you have so many other nations. I think the same thing happened in this, in the places like in the Sudan as well. Places like was it Rwanda, where you had a civil war in it, in which the two major tribes in Rwanda were, one tribe basically tried to commit genocide on the other tribe, the Houthis and the Tutsis, right? Even here in Nigeria, we even had our own civil war, and that civil war was set up by Esau Edom in order to put, the Hamites that are in this Nigeria in power, right? And to basically what's what I'm looking for? Kick Jake out of the rulership seat, because the first president of Nigeria, right, was a Jake. Nnamdi Azikiwe is even from the same state as me, but that's is beside the point. And that shows you that these devils have been interfering with, you know, the um autonomy of you Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, and even in, like, once again South America, and especially among, especially Jake in Babylon the Great, they have it the worst because they are right in the heart of the enemy. They are right as far as that in the middle of enemy territory, man. That's why you got to, that's why, if you are a brother that is in places like here in Nigeria now, Africa, right? Or places that are predominantly Jake, like South America, you have to give those brothers in Babylon the great extra salute, man, because hey, they are in the belly of the beast, doing the work, and that's beautiful right there. Because it takes an extra, those of the spirit of the Most High, Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, to be righteous in a wicked ass kingdom like Babylon the Great. You see all the unrighteous vibrations that go out of Babylon, man. You can't walk two steps without hearing about some wickedness going on in Babylon the Great. And that shows you, man, the spirit is really dealing with, the brothers that are in Babylon, the elders and the apostles, and so on and so forth. Right? Because even I've been saying this before, and it's just me speaking as a man. But there is a spirit in Babylon the Great that just makes you know people that just makes people, both Jake or the heathen, when they come into Babylon the Great, they just become more wicked than they were before. Because I've seen it happen so many times where you see somebody leave their own nation, right? A more conservative, more traditional nation, and go to Babylon the Great and become a complete demon, right? Because there's a spirit of Babylon the Great that just makes people, that just increases the wickedness of people out here. So, like I was saying, back to the topic, man. The oppression isn't just limited to Africa. It isn't just, Africans that are going through it. Really, is the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. And if you are hearing this truth and you fit the criteria or the category of these people, look around you and you will notice that the same things that I'm speaking of are happening in your countries, okay? Wherever you are located at, where you see heavy interference from the enemy, right? Whether it's Esau, Edom, right? Or even the heathen, because you might see some of these other nations, they are walking around, living high off the hog, gaining extreme wealth. And when you look into how they get their wealth, you find out that they are using your people, right? The resources from your land, or basically taking advantage of your people in order to get that wealth. And there's something I actually want to show right now that I just found out about, which shows you, man, how deep this really goes. Right? There's a Haitian billionaire. I think as of now, he is the only billionaire in Haiti, such a. And this cracker is a fucking Edomite, man. you know, the only Haitian billionaire, and he's an Edomite. And that shows you, man, that Esau is in his blessing right now. The fatness of the earth, the dew of heaven, and that is at the um at the expense of you Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, because Israel isn't just enjoying his kingdom just like that. He's only able to, Esau Edom is only able to enjoy in this kingdom and to live, you know, lavishly in this kingdom at the expense of you Israelites. And look at this shit, man. You see, the richest people in Haiti, and the vast majority of them are Edomites, right? And this is him right here. This is the cracker right here, man. The top, the richest man in Haiti, and his name is hold on, let me, yeah, Bigio. That's his name. He's the only billionaire in Haiti. Let me see if I can find a news article going into that, or a page going, something going into that. That's what I'm looking for. Here it is. This is his name right here. Gilbert Bigio, Haitian billionaire and retired businessman. And this is, I even said it, even up till now, he's still the only billionaire in Haiti. And he's a freaking Edomite, man. And that shows you this, that it's that our people stay at the bottom because of the causes, of course, first and foremost, right? But we can't all, but also because of the, because of Esau Edom. Right now, we are in his kingdom, so he's putting that hell on our people as well because of Esau Edom. After all, it's not written that the Most High would use these devils in order to put the curses on us as well. Well, let me go back to the book of Deuteronomy 28 so I can get that. As it's written, a nation which thou neither thou nor thy fathers have known, right? Let me go to that precept. And you have to bear with me now. I'm still having a little bit of this. I'm still having a cold. So this is the book of Deuteronomy 28, verse 49. Yahweh shall bring a nation against thee from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. And wasn't that exactly what happened to both the northern and the southern kingdom? Because now imagine being God, then, chilling in, the Americas, basically a paradise, okay? Because before Esau Edom came there, hey, Babylon the Great had as much resources as Africa does, right? And the proof of that is the historical gold rush, where basically on the west coast, everybody that when if you know about the Oregon Trail and the gold rush, basically everybody was rushing over to the west coast in order to panhandle and try to find gold. In fact, the Rockefellers, right, those demons, they became wealthy because they found oil in Babylon the Great. So oil, gold, and all other resources, because you have so many plants and animals that only grow in Babylon the Great, that these devils were able to sell during the transatlantic slave trade to to the other Edomite nations in order to enrich themselves. It's not a coincidence that Esau Edom was able to make so much wealth selling cotton, tobacco, and sugar, right, in Babylon the Great. That shows you just how fertile the land was. And then these devils came out of nowhere, find out they crossed two oceans, and let's just to get to Babylon the Great. And we aren't even talking about having to go through the Mediterranean Sea, right? And the funniest part is that if you want to go through the west coast of Africa, especially if you want to go by boat, you have to you have to go through the Mediterranean Sea, and it's the whole path, right? But the original way that Esau Edom came to West Africa first, because if I recall correctly, he got to the Americas. Okay, he got to the Americas before he got to West Africa. But the original way that Esau Edom was able to get to West Africa was by land. Going through the going through Egypt, through the Sahara, right, through North Africa, through the Sahara to West Africa. And that shows you, man, because if you think about the logistics of the transatlantic slave trade, you know that there was more to it than just getting slave labor. Esau Edom knew exactly who we were looking for, because the logistics don't make any sense. How are you going to go from Europe? And this is in the 1600s, okay? Back then, travel wasn't as streamlined as it is now. A lot of people would have perished or suffered grave injuries during that trip. Preparing just to come from Europe to West Africa would have been, preparing, have been days worth of travel. Have to prepare so much resources, not to even cross the desert, right? From North Africa all the way to West Africa, or from Egypt even all the way to West Africa. You still have to cross the desert, the Sahara Desert, right? I think it's called the Sahel, just to get to West Africa. And hey, the fact that Esau Edom went through all that shows that they knew exactly who they were looking for. They came for our people. And it's the same thing with Ghana and the Native Americans, okay? And we haven't even talked about the transatlantic slave trade. Oh, now you're carrying these slaves across two oceans, right? The the Atlantic, then into the Pacific. And this isn't like a one-time trip; it's a round trip. Okay, so the ship goes, it drops off the slaves, comes back, drops off the slave again, drops off the slaves again, comes back, drops off the slaves again. That shows the logistics are just insane, man. And it just shows you that that the Most High's hand was really in that matter, man. And the Most High, however, Hashem Yahshua had to be involved in it, and Esau Edom knew exactly who he was putting in captivity, and he knew exactly what he was doing, right? There was no confusion concerning Esau's actions. And it still continues to this day because it didn't stop with the transatlantic slave trade. It definitely didn't stop with colonization because you see that these European nations still have their hands so strongly held in Africa. You know, you see it with France, right? You see it with the British as well. And I think there was even a map that showed how the Europeans divided Africa. Let me see if I can find that map. That's probably what I'll use as the thumbnail. There was a map that I saw of Africa. You know how the Europeans divided the different parts of Africa, right? Let me show that map. And I think there should be another map of for it for the Americas as well. But let me just use the map of Africa first. It will be easier. The Berlin Conference. Thank you, Nesolakia, because I've been trying to remember the name of it, and it's the Berlin Conference. That was when it happened, where basically these Europeans divided West Africa among themselves, right? So you had all these nations being you had all these countries being divided between these European nations. So when any devil comes up to you, especially you Akemi, especially for you Akemi in Europe, right? When any devil comes up to you and says, "Oh, I'm not American, you know, I'm German or I'm Polish, right? Or I'm Czech, right? I don't have any part in the transatlantic slave trade." This you reference the Berlin Conference because all of Esau Edom were confederating this. All the nations really were confederating the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, right? Because they were all enriched from the rich. And you know, I'm preaching to the choir right now because the Akim already know, but all the nations were enriched by the transatlantic slave trade and continue to enrich themselves by way of colonialism, and still continue to enrich themselves today by way of how they extort resources, not export, extort resources from Jake here in Africa. And let me just download this real quick. This is the perfect map to use. This is the perfect image to use as my thumbnail. Like my Wi-Fi went out because the battery died. You know, here in Nigeria, man, it's always something in this country, man. You know, whether there's no lights, you know, there's no internet, it's always something. But you know, hey, through the spirit and fire, how about Sham Yahushai, we push on. So with that, let me just end the video right here since that happened. Anyway, all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh Basham Yahushai Basham Rakakwadash. Wa Abad Babal Shalawam.